everyone, it's Melanie Ann here. This is a case study that gives you a real-world example of helping students apply a positive perspective to stress and failure. In my first full-time role at Western, I led the creation and development of the Wellness Education Center, a student-run wellness education innovation hub in the basement of the University Community Center. As part of my Students as Partners teaching philosophy, I engaged students in a mixed methods quality assurance and improvement project, where we evaluated all aspects of the staff training procedure I had initially developed. What we found was surprising. Student staff members consistently named the live simulation exercise of staff helping clients with diverse needs as the most stressful aspect of training, but also the most valuable part of staff training. So let's pause. What would you do? Would you A, eliminate the assessment? After all, students named it as the most stressful assessment. Or B, keep it and tell the students to toughen up. After all, students named it as the most valuable assessment. Or C, change the assessment after asking, what's so stressful about the assessment? What's so valuable about the assessment? And what do you want to do about it? Okay, it's probably no surprise that I went with C. When we asked students about what was so stressful about the assessment, they said it was because they didn't know what scenarios they'd be facing before they were expected to jump in to a live simulation exercise of them responding to a diverse array of client needs. So I started giving all of the scenarios to the students ahead of time so they could prepare, or not, however they wished, for the assessment, and it was up to the student to decide when they felt ready to begin the assessment. The second main theme about the source of stress was the comment that I was very good at acting like the client. When I put myself in the student's shoes, I can imagine how they felt. In addition to factoring in my great acting skills, I can imagine how high stakes the assessment felt, because not only was I acting like the client in the moment, I was also evaluating their performance afterwards. So I asked students what they wanted and needed from me. What we decided is that I would always state at the beginning of the assessment that students could call a timeout at any time during the assessment for some support, coaching, pep talk, or even a meta moment, so they could stop and analyze what was going on and why their approach didn't seem to be working. They really enjoyed the opportunity to take some deep breaths, reflect, and problem solve with me in the moment. Now, let's take a meta moment for ourselves. Combining stress management with metacognition in moments of failure helps students gain self-awareness about their response to a highly stressful situation that they recognized as also a potentially valuable learning experience. This motivated them to experience stress as a sense of energy, curiosity, and competence that helped them get creative about how to partner with me to solve the problem they are facing. For students, it was an empowering process to adapt their stress response so that they could stay curious and creative rather than shut down in the face of failure. In other words, students at the Wellness Education Center recognize that significant, meaningful, long-lasting learning happens outside their comfort zone. Otherwise, they would have proposed eliminating the scenarios. Can you see how the words associated with this learning zone can also look like words we associate with good stress? Engaged, exhilarated, curious, expectant, challenge, willing to risk. Students who participated in this project said that the scenarios were the best preparation for their actual job of helping clients at the Wellness Education Center, which honestly could be quite a stressful job. So they wanted the practice during the scenario training, to learn how to adapt their stress responses to keep themselves in the yellow zone while they were on the job. At the same time, students recognized how counterproductive it was to try to learn under conditions that took them to the red zone. Remember what we learned about stress that is experienced as overwhelming? No one wants to feel like that. So together, we developed practices that allowed them to draw on their strengths to keep them in the learning zone so that they'd be more likely to succeed. Before I continue on, I'll share with you some questions I have asked students while teaching them about the fact that learning happens outside their comfort zone. What are the benefits of stretching yourself? What are the risks? This can be a great way to inquire about fixed mindset beliefs, but also about real barriers that students face so that you can compassionately and equitably respond to both the beliefs and barriers they share with you. Next, you might ask, share a time when you felt yourself learning in the yellow zone. How did it energize or motivate you? Remember, in your lesson about cultivating adaptive responses to stress, the first step is self-awareness. We want students to make that embodied connection for themselves about what it feels like to learn as a result of stretching themselves. At the same time, remember that you are not a stress-creating villain. We never want our students to be so overwhelmed that they cannot learn or contribute. Therefore, it's important to inquire about experiences in the red zone. If they trust you enough to share a learning experience that landed them in the red zone, you are better able to understand the classroom conditions that precipitate panic for some of your students. It also helps for students to be able to distinguish for themselves what it feels like to be learning and what it feels like to be overwhelmed. As a class community, you can share strategies to keep your classroom a learning environment even during moments of stress. So the final question here is a great way to call back to your classroom engagement guidelines that you created with them at the beginning of the year. It empowers each of your students and yourself to be equally responsible for creating a learning environment that helps everyone thrive. So recall that in this case study, my students said that this highly stressful learning experience was also the most valuable part of training. So they wanted it to stay. Therefore, I worked alongside the students to develop more supports to help students better prepare for this training milestone. This came about by drawing on the expertise of at least two populations of students. Number one, those students who seem to successfully complete the milestone more quickly than others. How did they approach this challenging exercise mentally? What study materials or strategies did they create or use to prepare? How did they handle failure? For context, only one student in all 3 years of the Wellness Education Center's history successfully completed the milestone on their first try. In sum, what were they doing differently? Equally important were the students who attempted the exercise a higher number of times than average before successful completion. What supports would they have appreciated to help them better prepare? What did they do differently in subsequent attempts at the exercise? What factors, both internally and externally, did they attribute their eventual success? It's easy to see how students' answers to these questions allowed us to get a deeper, first-person understanding of the kinds of supports we could develop to help more students prepare for this assessment. So now it is over to you. What have you learned about using a positive perspective to respond to stress and failure? How might teaching about these methods help more of your students find success in your classroom? And finally, and most importantly, what will your first step be to implement what you have learned into your course design?